Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be taking a look at a game called Run8. For those of you who have not seen this game or heard of this game, this is basically what purports to be the go-to simulator for rail enthusiasts everywhere. Now if you're watching this video, you're probably just like me who was sitting there going, is this a game that's worth my time and worth my money? And what I'm hoping to do with this video is to sort of answer that question and sort of let you sort of see what you're going to be getting out of the box, sort of a thing. So let's get started. So the first thing I want to talk about with Run8, and of course is a neat little program here, is the fact that when you go to the website, you get something that reminds me a little bit of a GeoCities page. Something that, for those of you who go back that far in the internet, you probably remember this kind of a component. And you're going through and you see some buttons at the top, and you go through it and you're like, this sounds like fun. Let's buy it. Where? Okay, where's the button? Here it is. And now you're taken to a website that looks like this. And, the first time I saw this, I immediately thought, oh, my credit card information is going to get stolen or something like that. Turns out it's completely legit, but I had to check about 30 other places to make sure we have no PayPal or anything like that. So you can kind of get my sort of feeling about sort of the nature of the product here before we even get to that point. So what you do is, of course, is you put all your information, you put your credit card information, press the thing, you get a nondescript email with a little code in it. And then, of course, you get a download link. You take that download link, go ahead and run it. And when you're done with the downloads and install, you get something that looks like this. A little nondescript folder pops up, and it reveals, of course, all the different user guides that come with this particular program. Now, the other thing I wanted to try, of course, is I go up to here and I type in Run8 or something like that, and it doesn't even have a shortcut that gets installed by default when you actually program this one. So me, of course, what I do for a living, my day job is teaching technology, and in the evenings, of course, I also teach college for like pedagogy and stuff like that. So I'm like, all right, let's grab one of these and take a look at it. So, you take it going. Authoring horns, that sounds like an interesting sort of a guide. So you double click this and you start reading through these. And, it kind of has this sort of format. I always like to say documentation's kind of like pizza. Any pizza is good pizza, but great pizza is great pizza kind of a thing. The documentation here kind of goes somewhere in between all those different items. The good news is, of course, is you've got all sorts of great detail here in all these millions of different places. But you're, as a person who's just starting, this is it. This is what you're given. You've got a nice little change log down here. And of course, you have the keyboard chart, which this is fantastic. Notice, by the way, this is for V2, even though this is the V3 version of it. So already I'm starting to get a little on the nervous side as far as what I'm getting myself into. So when you do start up the program, you get something like this. The total loading time, by the way, was second, which is a nice change from other rail simulators like this. But the thing you notice is you got the region. This is what it comes with, by the way. I have no DLC slightly. And you'll notice I can come down here and click these different route selections. And you can also notice I can select all of the route selections. So one of the things I did not understand, again, this is literally what you see when you first open this program here. I do appreciate the help button up at the top there, but look what it does. It opens up that folder again. So it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, that didn't really help me here, but that's okay. And again, these kind of programs, I'm the kind of guy who would actually make a program that is, they have a really nice boiling water nuclear reactor simulator. I actually got my little certification thing for that, but that's the kind of stuff that I'm into. So this is going to be important. So you go to select scenario, and of course you have all these different buttons up at the top. And which one of these is going to be the one that you want to use? Do you want to use the extra board here? Do you want to use the train, the world perhaps? You have your autosave options there, of course, so depending, if you even turned on autosave, that is. So, you're like me, so you come in here and you see the extra board, and you're like, Bakersfield, that seems legit. Let's go ahead and press that lovely launch button. No, I did not add that music. That's the actual music that's in the game. So then you get dumped in the world like this. And we're in lovely, I believe the sign here says Bakersfield. Now, the first thing I noticed is, I've played sims like these kind of things before, so I knew that this is going to be for clicking, right click is going to be for looking around, and of course, I press the shift key right away, and I can sprint along the tracks. Hold down the control, and I can sprint along the tracks. And this is what you get. There's no tutorial video. The graphics look definitely like something that I would have seen in 2001. Reminds me of something like out of Deus Ex or whatever it is, kind of like a background piece. You got these folks kind of chilling here, and sort of a thing like that. The one thing I would say, and now that I'll play this, I'll kind of tip my hat a little bit here. This game is like X-Plane versus Microsoft Flight Simulator kind of a thing like that. But this would be the X-Plane, and the TSWs and all this other kind of things would be your flight sim, kind of Microsoft Flight Sim kind of a piece. But, the track looks good. They were nice enough to give us a zoom function. If you press Shift F12, you can start flying. So, of course, me being me, knowing nothing about, I have no idea where I am. I don't know what I have. This is basically literally what you get here. So, Bakersfield, I'm not a California guy. I'm definitely an East Coaster. And there is an East Coast track, which I'll probably scoop at some point. And you get all this lovely stuff, and it looks pretty cool. And so, you hit F12, and you walk around for a while, and you're like, all right, now what? So then, of course, you learn that if you press the F3 button, you get the dispatch page, and they give you all these lovely things here. That this is all the different tracks. Keep in mind here that on dispatch, this is just by signal. There could be 50 miles between this piece of track here, and you wouldn't notice it. So me being silly comes over here. Needles. That's my limit here. Notice, by the way, if you click here, it just gives you an error message saying that particular area is not loaded. Remember at the beginning when I was mentioning that you had to select more than one in order to actually open them up? If you don't do that, you get some really silliness. But one of the great tips somebody gave me is if you hold your mouse over something and hit spacebar, it teleports you. Yes, that was the sound from Star Trek. That was literally the teleport sound. And now I'm all the way over here. This is literally the extreme end of our track that we have available to us here. Now, what you'll notice is I have no idea what direction I'm facing here. If I start running in this direction as fast as I can, I'll notice the fact that my track just vamooses. Now, one of the funny things is I've actually run a train into this a few times, expecting to have derailed, and it didn't happen, which I guess is a good thing. I guess it's a bad thing. I don't know. But if you bought the next track along the lines, it would actually automatically connect right here, which is awesome because, many of the other simulators out there, first of all, it takes 15 minutes to load, but second of all, when I hit my extremes here, things would happen. So this is what a lot of your track actually looks like. So again, this is me knowing nothing about how this game is actually played, kind of playing around with it a little bit, saying, man, it's a very, very empty world. I mean, I appreciate they gave me all these little doodads and details. So let's get to it then, right? So, of course, you hit the F, bring your mouse to the top of the screen, and there's our menu kind of a thing. Again, a great X-Plane reference here. You can see the big chunky buttons, which is nothing wrong with that. You've got a dispatcher, which you can actually enable. The dispatcher here is actually pretty good. Let's say 90% of the time, if you tell it where it's going, it knows exactly how to get you there. It's actually pretty impressive. You've got your keyboard controls. It's rail driver. I don't have a rail driver. It's a $210 for something that has a really, I don't know, I feel like I'm going to break it. Then, of course, you've got some other options. You've got licensing. I'm not going to open this one up. But by the way, your license code comes in the email, and it is hardware locked. I mean, you have to discuss with those folks if you like to transfer that license. It's, I don't know, 1998 called kind of a thing like that. And again, small indie studios are going to have to do things like that. You have a great network menu, and there's a great sense of humor in almost everything in this program, and I'll show you what I mean about that in a minute. But you can see, this doesn't help me as to know what this means. I appreciate the humor there, kind of a thing like that. But, I can't speak to multiplayer at this time. I haven't played any. From what I've read, it is extremely awesome. The multiplayer community is fantastic. They are so nice. They're real people, really genuine. They will legitimately help you out there. They're not slam trains into each other and stuff like that. That's for YouTube folks like myself to have to figure it out. But anyway, you go through this and try to figure out what these buttons are. You'll notice under train that there's a ton of failures here. And again, we have an air brake sheet. Thank God that's a thing. Man, you could have a little ability that you can come in here and change your guys here. I've already set this rent-a-conductor. You can change the name. Just kind of fun. You can actually disable that if you want to give your conductor a specific name. And again, things we'll take a look at in a minute. So, of course, I come up here and I know a little bit about trains. And you open this sucker up and you go, oh my gosh, what have I done here? And now you go through, and these are all the items that come with the game. Now, you're probably looking at this right now saying, I have a question for you. Well, why are some gray, some not? Well, the reason for that is if you buy the individual locomotive packs and the skin packs and livery packs, you actually get access to it and they automatically change color. So let's say, for example, I'll grab this Jeep real quickly here. I'll go ahead and add this over. Notice it's gray. So I'm going to grab that one and let's go ahead and stick something on the back. And let's grab this box. Oh, nope, that would have been too nice for us. Oh, Bethagon. I don't even know what that means. Let's pump that in there. Place train. Let's see here. I'll go hold my mouse. Click. What you're going to observe is you're going to see the fact that our train here has got this big Run8 thing on the side of it. Now, if I had bought the actual livery pack, they're like between 10 and $40, depending on which one you get. It'll actually have, Union Pacific and all that nice stuff. But the cool thing is this is actually just a legitimate ready-to-rock vehicle. So let me go ahead and come back down to earth here. And of course, you're looking at this from the exterior, and it's like, I love the fact it's T2 kind of a thing like that. It's looking pretty good. One thing I really appreciate, again, going back to that sort of sense of humor that's anywhere in this game, but there's actually interaction. So if I could come up to this locomotive, I could press E, and I actually could climb onto the locomotive. You know, if I hit E again, and you can actually like stand up here. Now, what I've seen in multiplayer is people actually ride these locos. And now, the reason that is incredibly important is I'll show you in a second here. But this locomotive and this little boxcar are completely selectable. I can actually left click on this and you can see that there's a lot of stuff going on here. And this is where I cross the line between, oh, okay, this is pretty cool too. Oh, hello. You know, kind of a scratch the itch that is, you know, that need for technical, cool, what the heck? Complicated sort of goodness here. So you'll notice here, there's a million little buttons. I can delete the train. I can make an AI drive it. This would be pretty absurd right now because unfortunately, if I actually turn on my little labels here, you'll notice here that it has no destination. See where it says none. So if I actually were to let this train kind of go do its thing, it would go about 6 feet and stop at that signal, which is what it's supposed to do. But unless it has a destination, which, oh man, don't get me started with that. It's like I feel like I need reading, like to read the novel before playing the novelization before the movie, kind of a thing like that. But it is stuff that I will provide you in another video because I did figure it out in the end. So anyway, you'll notice that if I click on this, I have a bunch of different options here, and this is all functional. This is all simulated. Now, if I press my handy dandy Control F11 key, I actually climb inside here, and you can see how you doing, buddy? But this is sort of like a regular simulator in the sense the buttons actually do stuff. You know, if I climb behind me, of course, some of these do work, some of these don't. I've got my emergency cutoff here. Again, depending on what locomotive you get in, is going to have a big impact on what different components you're going to see here. The nice thing is there is a switch for everything. You have the isolation switch here. Right now, I'm on the stop key. If I wanted to start this, I could pop this up to run. Of course, I can start, stop, isolate. I really appreciate the fact this one's here. But all of our switches down here are actually completely functional. I've got my little panel lights. I can turn my gauge lights on, sort of a thing like that. You've got your headlights. And again, what you can do is you can click and drag to hit the switches. I find it a little difficult. Easiest way to do this, by the way, is you click and hold and then do up and down rather than left and right. It's much easier to control. But you'll see I have a radio in. The radio actually works in this game, which I think is really cool. I'll show you that in a bit. Coming down here, though, you've got, you know, your little sidewall heater if I need that. You've got your engine run control, generator fuel. Obviously, you wouldn't engage that. You got your fuel pump. You got your bacon. The bacon light doesn't work. Life is sad. And I have all this lovely instrumentation. You have a little warning on the parking brake here. By the way, don't start your train with the parking brake engaged. I come from other sims that we don't have to deal with these kinds of things. So it's a kind of part of the fun here. So of course, so we got ourselves all set up there. If I go up here, you know, you've got your cutout here. You've got all your different switches and stuff like that. Different trains have different levels of detail. The one that I grabbed here is probably the least detailed as far as, you know, the bells and whistles. Literally. The bells and whistles that you have enabled to you, these are actually different. So what I'll actually do is I'll jump back outside of the train. You can do that anytime, by the way, one thing. And I can just hit auto start all locomotives. Oh yeah, there it is. Now what you'll notice is if I come back here, this is all simulated separately. Now, one of the things is you'll notice we are coupled here, which is what we wanted. But you'll notice my air hose is actually not connected. What? Like when we usually play these games, we slam these into each other. We're good to go. But I actually have to connect these suckers to actually get anything out of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect them like that. And what you'll notice is I have this little angle cock here. And that's basically going to let pressure so I can start pumping up the brakes. Now, if I actually click on this car, watch this, by the way. This is so cool. Oh, isn't that awesome? The whole train sinks down on itself like that. I'm not going to take it. But you'll notice my air brakes literally have nothing. You'll also notice the fact we have a retainer valve. You'll notice we have the ability to bleed the brakes. I've had to do this on multiple occasions because they'll get stuck. You'll notice that we have the option to cut it in. I can actually take this entire piece and remove it from the consist. You'll also notice if I come down here and I click on these, I can actually go ahead and place a re-railing frog, or I could re-rail like a piglet. I like what they did there, the pig and the frog. We got a Muppet slash Winnie the Pooh reference there. But I have had to actually re-rail a few trains now. Guess why? And one of the cool things is it actually places a little yellow piece. And what you do is you drive the rail over the yellow piece to put the thing back onto the rail. Try doing that on a 2-degree grade, and you will know the meaning of I need a backup locomotive. But again, that's what's kind of neat about this game, stuff like that. But you'll notice right now I've got no pressure in here. And if I come up here and click on this one, you'll notice it's not going to tell us anything. But if we hit stats, you'll notice there's things like here. Notice no com. Again, that sense of humor is everywhere in this game. You'll notice I have 876 hours on this locomotive, and this is actually a unit BNSF 3033. Now, what I found out afterwards is this actual unit is taken out of a separate document that actually exists in the game. Now, that document has things like the hours on it. You can actually add hours to it, which actually increases the probability things will go wrong on it. Now, you're sitting there going, what? And I said, yes. These locomotives are working continuously, wearing down locomotives. I am literally running the engine and wearing it out right now. So let's go climb back inside again, and I just want to kind of share a couple things with you. Now, you'll notice right now that I've got absolutely no pressure in the loco brake, and that my main reservoir is up. Kind of cheap right now. So what I'm actually going to do is I'll go ahead and bring us up to run 3 here. One thing I'm a little disappointed here is you don't get a lot of noise. Again, the volume is just low on everything. And we'll actually start puffing this thing up a little bit, trying to get a little bit of a goodness here. Of course, if we wanted to, we can enable the generator field as well. Let's go pop that out real quick. Again, I'm not an engineer, but I do know a little tiny bit here. So again, we'll start puffing the brakes up a little bit. I'll go jump back outside here. And if I actually come here now, you'll notice that I still have no air inside this train, the boxcar. The reason being is I never actually opened it. Now, you have to be really careful here when you open this. So I'm going to click on this. I'm actually going to open it partially. So what that's going to do is it's going to let a little bit, see how it's starting to puff up a little bit? So you can see my line right now is 54, which does not surprise me in the slightest. If you remember a minute ago, I was mentioning the fact that we didn't have a lot in the main reservoir. You can see my aux is coming up, my emergency is coming up. Now, if this train were, let's say, 6,200 feet long, which try getting that through some of these passes. You can, by the way. That's kind of the theme of the game, in case you haven't noticed. This is going to take a while, a really, really long while, by the way. So one of the things we can do is we can come over here. We can actually open the angle clock up the rest of the way. We have to be really careful of that if my main reservoir is really, really puffed up, because what will happen is it'll and trigger all the emergencies at the same time. But you can see here, we have absolutely none in the cylinder itself. The handbrake is basically holding this train. And we can test to make sure the handbrakes are firing correctly. And again, you have to click on it. One of the things I sort of wish is if I could kind of stick my head down here and I can actually mechanically inspect the brakes as they're engaging or not engaging. That would be really, really cool. Unfortunately, we don't have that, but we can still come over here and click on it, and we can double check to make sure it works. Now, you're probably saying, if this is a 100 cars, do you ever have to come over here and play with these? Yeah, I hate to say it, but in my experiences with this game, I remember one time I started up, the train wasn't moving well. I'm like, what's the deal? I actually ran back here, and one of these valves had gotten stuck. And it caused basically this guy to block the nice flow to the rest of the train. So it wasn't like part of the train was releasing the brakes, the other part wasn't, which apparently it's a real failure. Speaking of failures, there are a ton of possible failures here. Of course, if you want to, you can shut them all off. Again, shut off. Please don't do anything about the derailments. This would be ridiculous to shut that off. So if you want to go 600 miles an hour down a mountain, yeah, knock yourself out kind of a deal. But one of the cool things here is you can actually turn those brake valve failures on and off. And sometimes you can cycle it. Another thing that's happened to me one time is I hit the emergency brakes, and this line went kabam and blew apart, which caused that part of the train to immediately jam, and that part of the train did not, and it immediately snapped the coupler. So it's little things. It's like, wow, I don't remember ever seeing that in any other game. Now, I'm not going to sit here and watch this go, and one of the great things they provide us here is you have these fancy buttons here. Watch this. So remember how I forgot to put that on the run? That's why it didn't work, by the way. But you'll see now, if I click on this guy, he's all puffed up. His emergency reservoir is ready to go. I can actually climb in and actually get this thing going. Now, you'll see this refuel button. If I actually click that, I can refuel. I can only refuel, when I'm stopped. One fun thing, too, you open up the windows. I like that. I appreciate that. So now, a couple moments ago, I was mentioning some of the different features. You can see here we are, BNSF 3033. And you can see, of course, that we have nothing particularly decided here. So let me go ahead and pop back outside of the train here. I'm going to click on us. We're going to go ahead and give it a name. So we are Z priority. We are going from, we'll do Barstow. Barstow is easy. Boop. So now if I actually look at the top, you can see here that we need to have this little piece here. And if I want to do priority 9, and I will say it's the 1st of the month, even though I think it's actually the 8th of the month. So you can see, very hard to see, but there's this little thing that now tells our guy where we are, what's our priority, where we're coming from, where we're going, what's our priority, and then, of course, what day of the month it is. Now, that is, there's a bunch of different ways to do that. I know everybody's a little different with that, but for us, that works pretty well. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the F5 key, which is another quick cheat to go ahead and remove all the brakes at the same time. And you'll notice the train goes, because remember, I didn't actually set any brakes on this. So one of the things we could do is if we wanted to do a brake test, and one thing I love is the fact I can steer this thing from outside. So if I actually were to climb inside again real fast, let me go ahead and take a look real fast. The handbrake, the parking brake is set. Oh, I forgot to unset my parking brake. I'll do that in a second. I'm just going to make sure my train brakes are all completely released. Looks pretty good to me. Go ahead and put it into a drive here. I'll press the insert. You can hear the idle comes up because I was being a noob there. Let's click on that. Released. He is set. Now watch this. Did you see how it stretched the coupler? Now let me cut out the power. Do you see that? Oh! That is all simulated, and it's all simulated extremely well. So if I were to actually go like this and stretch it, if I actually open this, too much stretch force. I actually can't even release the coupler. Oh! So I'll go ahead and do that. Now if I try to open up the coupler, you'll notice it now gives me the ability to go ahead and set this now. Now, of course, if I make my train go forward, watch what happens. Oh! Now my... So the emergency brakes immediately kicked in. Because remember I was telling you about that little angle cock? And hear that? Did you hear it? So what had just happened is I blew it, and it actually triggered just the way it was supposed to. Like it actually does. And I don't know, I'm very tickled by that because it just shows how I know absolutely nothing about any of these kind of things. And stuff like that is just fun for me. So, now, of course, I have to get back inside and see what's all broken here. Let's see here. Brake pipe, main pipe. Let's see here. We are pretty good here. I'll go ahead and now set it to reverse. I think you have to put everything in neutral after below that. Notice my men reservoir is completely depleted. F7. And again, I love the fact they give that to you. So if you do mess up, you do, of course, have the ability to go ahead and correct your humiliation here. Okay, let's do that correctly this time. So now, of course, we can reconnect. We can open this guy. He's already closed. We can go ahead and do one of those. And, of course, if we're doing this for an entire train, I can click here and I'll quickly press do all my brakes, kind of a thing like that. You can also hit the F7 if you need to do that. And it's great because that will reset everything on the train very quickly. And, again, you can confirm that. Now, again, going to the level of detail they provide you, you'll notice I have this little thing chilling here. This is an end of train device. And this is just going to tell me where the end of my train is. So enough of that. I'll kind of give you an idea of what they give you. And again, keep in mind, this is all set on its own. Let's actually drive these things so you can see what it actually looks like in our universe here. Now, if I press F3, you're going to notice that we have a little thing up here that says channel 55 star 12. So I'm actually going to go over here. I'm going to dial in the channel. Now, keep in mind, if you're a multiplayer, this is going to be different. And it said star 12. Star 12 would be for the dispatcher. You'll notice I've got that all set. So what I'm actually going to do is, you notice, by the way, an AI train automatically calculated. I'm going to enable auto. Great reference there. And what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to give him a call, and I'm going to request basically to get going. Now, if you remember a minute ago, we said they were heading over to Barstow here. So I'm basically going to do that. To do that, there's a couple ways. You could be lazy. You come up here and click this button. If you want to be a little bit fancier, you can come up here and do this one. And then you just give him a minute. And then you realize you're out of range, or I'm on the wrong channel. Ah, there it is. So you'll need to see here, Auto DS is answering a Needles Tower here. If you listen carefully, you can actually hear everything behind me freaking out. Notice our end of train device actually works here. I love that. There's not a lot of games that I've seen like that do the end of train thing. And the end of train thing is actually even better than that, and I'll show you what I mean in a minute. So we're starting to roll forward here. Again, we've contacted dispatch, asked them very, very nicely. One thing we can do here is we can come in here if we want to. Again, they try to design it so you can either do it that way or you can kind of do it this way, sort of a thing like that. So, of course, I can ask for mainline authority here. Come sneaking in here. And again, all sorts of failures can occur at any time. I could, one of my traction motors could fail. You know, my end of train, the battery could die. You could have a communications failure on it. There are so many different things that could happen. All right, we've got mainline authority. Fantastic. So now, of course, we'll ask them for that symbol or the signal up top. Now, keep in mind, there's nothing to tell me how fast I'm supposed to be driving right now. There's nothing in here that will tell me that my next signal's red. There's no... Ah, there it is! Let's go. Now, keep in mind, I'm in the system now. So until you're in the system, you can't really do a lot here. So now I'm going to get rolling, and we're kind of sneak out. Again, everybody's going, you just slammed it into Run 4. Are you insane? Now watch this. Check it out. The distance meter works. So in this particular case, if you're passing through a single, you know, a lot of other games, you get a little kind of GUI. Notice, by the way, there's no GUI. It's just not a thing in this program. But what you actually have is if your train is like 1,000 feet long and you're going through a signal, for example, you actually can tap that and you can measure out 1,000 feet to know your entire train has passed through that signal. Or more likely, what you're probably going to do is you're going to have speed limits. I'll shut that off because we don't need it right now. And again, I'll just kind of get going. Now you're saying, hey, all right, we're on our way. By the way, it does flash everything a certain color to notify you yes or no whether or not you've got permission. It also shows you this little green zone as well as the status of some signals along the way as you're rushing. Now, the cool thing here is we actually are double lined. And some people, of course, say, what happens if you get out of the train? Nothing. I can run alongside of it. Da, 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 da. And you can even, if you, oh, if you're really quick. Guess I'm not very quick. Come on. Ha-ha! You can even jump onto it. And you can kind of play this sort of a game here. And at any point, of course, you can press Control F11. You could dive back up here if you needed to, sort of a thing. And again, all those little details are provided for you. Now, there's a lot of other things inside of this as well. Again, looking at this kind of environment, by the way, there's a lot of this. When I say a lot of this, this kind of, driving through the desert with kind of like the sparse, if you're anywhere on this side of things, this is what you're going to see a lot of in this actual game here. And it's not to say any of that is necessarily bad. It's just to say that this is what it is. It's one of those things, and a lot of grades too. By the way, if you press Shift and Z, you'll notice it provides you with some useful information. It tells us where we are. It tells us what time it is. You can hit Shift C again. It tells us some good details here. It'll let us know how much stress is on the couplers. Oh my gosh. Wait until you've broken about your 4th or 5th coupler here. You'll see what I mean. We can come in here. We can see what my symbol is. We can see how much horsepower I have. Obviously, this thing is ripped. We can go pretty quick with this. So you can see how heavy we are, loads, axles. You can see your total length is 112 here. You also get this really cool diagram, which shows you how much stress you're putting on this. You can see right now my locomotive is pulling this little tiny box car. So it's all white. But, if I were to do something really silly, like jam it into Run 8, you'll see that it's not even going to register. Our train is just too short. But literally, you'll watch a whole long white line that will go across the screen, and you get a little orange piece in the middle, and you're like, it's stuck again, and you'll have to run back. But if you do Shift Z again, it'll actually tell you exactly how fast you're supposed to be going. You can also see my next signal is coming up in 0.4. And what you'll notice here is I'm speeding, and I'm not losing points. That guy is just, hey, hello. Seems stunned, apparently. But you'll notice there's no consequence. The only consequence here is if I derail the train. So it becomes very, very quickly one of those things where you're like, should I be ripping around at full speed? Should I take my time? Of course, when I've had enough time to jam the brakes, and you can see that signal. Again, the dispatcher did a really nice job here of getting us on the correct rail. And over here in the U.S., of course, we're on the right instead of the left. But the dispatcher will actually put you around people, and he'll put people on sidings, and really does a really nice job based on the priority. And you can see we're doing roughly 40. By the way, it does keep track of if you're speeding or not, because you get this little like conductor or engineer report kind of a thing that you can go take a look at a little later on. Now, we'll pop this up and run too. It's pretty tight grade. I could not believe how big the grades are. But one of the most incredible things here is if you look off into the distance, by the way, if you press the number 4, there is a third-person view. This is the only third-person view you get in this program. And you can actually, of course, do one of these. You want to make people real sick, kind of a thing like that. Zoom in, you can zoom up, you can lift up. It's kind of, you can do like the dramatic railroad pan. Pretty much anything you need to do to that kind of effect. But this is basically all you get. You're not going to right-click and drag or anything like that. So now people at this point, hopefully you've started to kind of get a feel for what you're getting into. Of course, we can press Control F11 to get back inside. Hopefully getting a pretty good feel for sort of what this program is all about. Now, the other question people say is, all right, so locomotives, obviously, they seem to be a little bit more on the technical side. I mean, keep in mind what I'm doing right now is I'm just sort of just kind of meandering sort of the direction here. There's a lot of this. If you want to do all sorts of yard operations, you're certainly welcome to do so as well. Now, where's everybody else? Well, that's when things get interesting. So let's go ahead and stop the train. There's a nice emergency cheat for that, by the way. Just hit Shift F5. It just puts the parking brake on. But if you're going to derail, it's a quick way to fix it. Now, remember a while ago when I was talking a little bit about all these different options here, and I mentioned which one do you do? You'll notice if you go into World, there's this thing that says Default Route Session and Busy Barstow. So I'm going to pick this one, and I'm going to load this one. Now, you'll notice at the top left corner of the screen that you can see they're replacing train 50, replacing 60. That's a train 70. It's starting to get busy. Very, 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 very busy. Ding. Now, if I press F3, you'll notice that the world's a little more populated. Now, of course, if I turn on auto is already enabled. By the way, did you notice that this is the same world I was just in? So now if I go into, let's go YOLO flying here, you'll notice the world is now packed. We no longer are just us. There are literally, I think it's something like almost 6,000 units inside of our world right now, and it's all populated at the same time. And all of these trains are actually AI controlled unless they're chilling on a siding like that. Now, one of the things that makes this program absolutely wild, and again, notice there are no scenarios or anything. This is just kind of what you get, is to observe the fact that there are little things on the tops of these guys. You can see CDZ, RIC, VVC, BOR, stuff like that. Those are all destinations for industries. Look at the size of this train. By the way, we can get rid of that train with a single delete if we wanted to. We can actually take control of it if we wanted. And you'll notice that just like always, you have one guy going that way, you have one guy going that way. And this whole place is one gigantic traffic jam of everybody sitting here. But one of the things you'll note, if I open this up, is a lot of these locations actually have industries. Now, if I press Control I, actually, what is it, Control L? And I think I was a little bit safer at Control. Yeah, there we go. But you'll notice here is all of these different places are actually in existence somewhere inside of our world. If I click on Kunter Brothers and I click on Transport, it'll actually teleport me here. And the reason this is so cool is because now that I'm here, this industry actually can take certain types of items in and out of it. So for example, if I Kunter Brothers here, I can actually see that it likes to take box cars. And what it likes to do is it likes to take them from all of these different locations that comes through it. Now, what it does is it actually takes loads of box cars. Every 36 hours, it can take 2 of these and it actually spits them out. Now, if I go over to, let's see here, the blast pit, that sounds pretty good to me. Scrolling down here, you can see also these folks need quite a bit of open hoppers from back in PMT. You'll also notice there's a local freight symbol here, which would be the train that would typically be the one that brings that stuff out here. Now, the reason this is so, wow, these guys could really go through stuff here. But the reason this is so fascinating is all these things actually exist in the world themselves, which means if you were to get a specific train load, like for example, if I pop over here real quickly, you can see how these guys are basically this huge train, this industry that exists right here. Let's see if I can remember the keyboard command for that. We're over here in Edison. Edison's fine, kind of a thing. This location here, of course, I'm going to go ahead and Control F8 is pretty good. Watch me take a screenshot by accident here. Hey, I got it. But you'll see here that this one is called Pro, and it's actually producing materials that are being fed into these carts. So if I come back literally real time in 48 hours, they'll actually be full of stuff, and I can then grab them. And actually, if you look right at the top here, it'll tell you where they need to go. So we can see here, this is ARMN431928. We can go run them over to that position, grab some empty ones, and actually come back here and go feed them in. And you could service the manifest trains, which are the big ones, kind of moving everybody. And then you could service all the switching that actually involves kind of breaking it back and forth. Now, speaking of switching, in the default game, you get this massive, massive, massive area here. Now, one of the things that's so fascinating about this particular area, let's see here, we'll do engine service here. I'm going to hold my mouse over and press the space bar. I don't know why, I find it so funny they chose that sound effect, and I'm sure they're violating something by doing it, but I don't care because I think it's hilarious. But, you come into these areas and you have actual places where they can service the locomotives. And if you service the locomotive, it's more likely to, have less damage, kind of a thing like that. All those different pieces are all kind of simulated for that particular kind of component. I can grab one of these and take it over there. And it's just the most fascinating thing because they actually thought to make it all a real living world. If you blow an axle, come get back here, get some new power. Or, if things just don't work for you, I can always go like this and solve the problem as well. So that's something they do a really, really good job. So this really is quite a sandbox sort of environment. Now, I can just ask you to imagine how challenging it would be to try to take all of these to all their respective industries and transfer all of them. And again, that's part of the reason why there's such a strong online following for this program as well. Now, the last thing we're going to take a look at, and then we'll wrap it up because we've gone on plenty long enough as it is. But like I said, I kind of want it to be thorough here. By the way, thank goodness that they actually provide you with the numbers on these when you turn on this mode. Otherwise, this would make me insane. Absolutely, completely insane. I love the fact they had a little place. But one of the things they actually provide you with is Ump Yard, which for those of you who are not familiar with that, it's basically you have a big bowl, and what you do is you go to the top and you basically drop locomotives down here. But what they actually do is they give you the ability to automate that procedure. So you can actually come in here, tell it what row to go on a particular package, and it'll actually start to build up all the different ones that need to go for their specific locations. Like you can see right at the tippy top here, we have 2 pros there. We have another BNSF. If I press Control F8 a bunch of times, yeah, there we go. You can see that one, see how both of these are going to lack. If I come down here, you can see this one's going to Rick. And you could actually start, these are all Bore, and this one's going to Barstow. And you could actually start to basically drop all these trains down here, and they'll all lock themselves in a position, allowing you to kind of build up your local train, do your thing, grab the empties, and then run back, which is just fascinating. Now, one thing this program also does is it actually has the ability to go ahead and autosave. So if I come back right now, I could actually jump in and pick up where I left off. So you could potentially run the railroad, so to speak, forever. And one of the cool things here, and if you're huge rail fans here, you can kind of sit down here and enjoy the noise. Or if you're like me, you could be a bum and just sort of climb on the side of this and literally ride this forever. It's just the most fascinating thing. So now we're kind of gotten to the end here and say, is this a program that's worth it? Kind of a piece like that. It's going to depend on what you find fun. For me, it's all about the learning something new. It's the technical achievement kind of a piece. Do I have the ability to figure out everything that I need to do? Am I going to be able to figure out what combination of different pieces I need to use? And I told you I was going to take a screenshot at some point. What is it going to be for me? Obviously, if I try to stop a train this large, it's going to be a process. You're going to be using regen, and then you're going to run out of air, and then one of the brakes are going to stick, and then something's going to derail, or something's just going to lock up and break off. You have little trackside detectors that will actually talk to you like the real ones do and tell you, if there's anything wrong with your train. All that is all in here. So if you're really looking for the complete, like I said, almost like the X-Plane sort of experience, this is definitely something that you want to check out. If you're looking for something where everything's a little more canned, or you hold your hand, or it's going to knock out points, or you have like a profile that you're going to be working on, you're probably going to want to look at some of the other train simulators out there. This one, from all the things I've ever played, it's right up there with the absolute best as far as physics, especially the brakes. The brakes are incredible. It feels like it feels like what it weighs, kind of a thing like that. Sound, I wish everything was a little bit louder. Gameplay, you have to make your own game. And some people might find that to be the greatest thing in the world. Some people might say, I'd rather, play something that has a given scenario or something like that. Or I don't want to have to read through 45 documents to figure out how to make, my things go to the correct locations. That's all going to be something that's going to be dependent on you. But like I said, if you think about cost-wise, this was $50, and you get about 220 miles of terrain. You get about 5 or 6 locomotives. So actually, we'll just help everybody out real quick. We'll go open those up so y'all can see that. I think it's a little more than that. That's just me, though. You get a GP40, you get an SD, you get an SD45, you get ES44DC, you get an SD70 Ace. You also half get the, the P42 here. By half, it's a little incomplete. You'll know what I mean when you look at it. It doesn't have textures unless you get the pack for it. So that's pretty impressive for $50. By the way, if you're wondering why these all have the Run8 Western things, it's because they don't have the livery for it, kind of a piece like that. So naturally, you're going to get something that looks like that. So is it worth it? You're going to have to kind of decide based on everything that you've seen here today. Keep in mind, there's a lot of things we didn't do. We didn't run a train into a local and pick things up. We didn't do any of the humping exercises. We didn't do any of the work that involves, we didn't do any cuts or we didn't do any switching or anything like that. As far as things that I would like to see in this program, I really wish there was a really well thought through tutorial. And maybe that's something I have to kind of work on my own, kind of a thing to start kind of putting together to help folks out. Because if I want to do, what do I need to do X, Y, Z? Like, there's not a lot of that. You're literally just thrown in, just like we saw in the earlier part of this video. And all right, have fun, sink or swim, kind of a thing like that. I really appreciate the fact that there's a lot of tools built into this to make it so I can delete things or change things. Like if I wanted to take this entire train right this second, I could come up here. I could actually surrender my previous train. If I relinquish my train, I can click on this one. This is now my train. Auto start, just like that. And now this train is ready to go. That's literally how quick I could do that. Or if I prefer, I literally could sit here and come over here. I could connect the MU connection. I could set each one of these individually. I could actually click like this. I could set the MU setup. I could make this one a split not differential brake. I call it regenerative braking. It's called dynamic braking in Loco world. Sorry, everybody. But, you can sit here, test your brakes, do all your different connections. You could do all of that. Or just like you saw, click, click, and now you're on your way, which is definitely to its advantage as far as the program goes. So other than that, enjoy and happy railing. Happy railing.